Well, hey folks, welcome to the channel. Today we're going to pull the top end off of this Farmertec ms660 kit saw. Tools you may need. You need a T27 Torx, either on your impact or a T-handle or a screwdriver. And you're going to need a 5/16 socket on a ratchet or a wrench or whatever you prefer to use. And I'm sure I'm forgetting something else. But with that said, let's get started. Remove the air filter cover and air filter assembly first. And I've had this saw for over 4 years now, going on 5 years now. It's kind of hard to believe. I've had 2 different cylinders on it. The original, I just didn't really care for how I'd done some of the initial port work on the build, and for just flat out cutting and falling, it was awesome, but in a mill it was horrible. Really keep it up on the pipe to keep that bar moving, and I'm talking like with the 36-inch bar on it and some pretty good size stuff. But we're going to go to a big bore setup on it, and I know not everybody's a fan of those, but I've got an 066 with a big bore on it over there. It's not a real fast saw. It don't always have to be a all-out screamer, but it is a torque monster, and that's kind of what I would like to do here. This saw's kind of set for quite a while. I've got to playing around with the notion, hey, let's make a hot saw out of it. That always backfires on me. I had a really hot 066 I'd sold to a gentleman. I don't know, it's been well over a year ago now. I've shared a couple shorts from it within the last few weeks, I guess. It's just titled Nasty 660, and the main reason I do that is, for some reason, if you throw that term nasty out in front of the video, I don't know, it gets more views. Kind of weird to me, but it is what it is, guys. I'm going to take the throttle loose next. I'll end up needing a little pair of hemostats or something to get that out, probably. Sometimes you can just flip them right out of there, like so. You're lucky on that one. I have drained the fuel out of this, but I'm going to crack the, see there's still, I don't know if you picked that up over top of the rain and the heater, still a little bit of tank pressure there. Get the fuel line off. I think this saw's actually even still running on the stock fuel lines on it. For some reason that linkage ain't wanting to let us go out. And this saw here, I put this kit together, but the linkage that came with it was just completely horrible. And I ended up, I had an old junked, I think it was an 066 or 064 handle here, and ended up pulling that OEM linkage out of that handle and putting in it, and fixed all the issues it had. Back to this saw, I'd done some work for a guy. I don't know, he's a follower of the channel. He's way out west at Washington State, I think. I could be wrong. He can correct me. It was for Robert. It was a 660. He'd sent a few cylinders with it and told me just to keep what I didn't use. And one of those was a 54mm, and I said, hey, I'm just going to throw it on the saw. Do a little port work on it, port it kind of hot, because the intake timing on it's horrible. I think it has over 170 degrees of intake duration. Would need a ton of epoxy to ever use it for any kind of work saw. Really high exhaust roof, really late transfer opening, but I put it together, done what I could with it, dialed squish in on it. It's got a moly coated pop-up piston from the Duke I'd originally put into the build. And it screams, it's strong, runs really fast, like in, say, 16-inch and under soft-ish wood. Runs really, really good, but to use it as a work saw, some people may love that as a work saw, but I don't. It just ain't got the grunt that I like. I think he told me those cylinders were like the cheapest things that he could find online. But we ended up putting the original Farmertec cylinder back on his saw and getting it dialed in, and it's pretty dang stout, pretty sporty. The Farmertec cylinders usually do time pretty decent. Just remember that. I couldn't really source a Farmertec big bore, and I have one of the Duke's big bore cylinders on another saw, so I know I can make it work here, and that's going to be another video for another day. I should have shown that. You have a bolt here, bolt back here. I'm going to have one right here. And this saw has a lot of time on it, a lot of hours. It was on the original cylinder. It was put together primarily as a milling saw in the beginning. Pull this off. There it went. I even stopped the camera. She fell behind the clutch cover. You guys probably seen that. I have so much light on this stuff so the cameras will pick up and get a good sharp video for you guys. It's, believe it or not, you sometimes about need a pair of sunglasses on to see what you're doing. Looks like we were missing a bar nut. And people ask if those are in backwards. I don't know, I guess it just depends all on who you are. The original bar studs are like about the same length on each side, and on these Farmertec ones when I get them, just on my saws, like if you're in a mill and swapping things in and out, honestly, if you put the longer side out, it makes for an easier swap, if that makes sense. If you're just general use, it's probably not going to really matter, but if you're using one of those bigger, thicker clutch covers, what is it, the West Coast covers, I think I have one on one of my 066s, it's kind of handy as well. How about the cover back here, and I swear I think I'm going to dial the plastic on this before I put it back together. I honestly had thoughts of pulling the whole saw down and painting it and dyeing everything, but I don't think I will. I think I'll just dial the plastic. Then again, I may not. I'll just have to see. I ain't dyed anything in a long time, and I've got some 365s, 372s that the dye didn't take very well on. And what I'm referring to is you take RIT clothing dye, if you've not seen it done. You can dye these plastics, but don't think it's dyeing it all the way through. It don't. You can still scratch it. You'll still see orange. It's just a little more durable than, say, taking a rattle can and painting everything. Let's yank the muffler off. I'm not for sure if that's one of the Duke's covers or a highway cover. They're about identical. If you don't want to buy one of the higher dollar muffler covers, those are a good option. You add an eye support. And those were all but loose. Should put some Loctite on. Those had it held good there. And if you're unaware, like an old 066, like an old school with a short tank, or an 064, use this bolt, which is like an M4 by, I don't know, M4 by 1, someone by 100, someone can correct me on that. And then we have the M6 here. Kind of weird how they done that, but a lot of the times you'll get those older saws and those are wallowed out, stripped out. You got to put something bigger in them. This can be a nightmare. Should have that off. She is running good and rich. So you can see it has an extra port. Has a screen in it you could remove. This one, the screen's been removed from the inside and the inner port opened up. And maybe you can see back in there the complete baffle and cages had the spot welds ground out and removed. You don't have to do that. I do it on a lot of them, but you can just open up that baffle and they'll breathe good enough for an old work saw. They'll get the heat out. Alright. I want to save our gasket because I might have another one here, I might not. So I want to keep that in check. We'll just lay it in the muffler and set it back here on the bench out of the way. This step's totally unnecessary just for changing a cylinder. And you know, this sawing do pretty quick. I may even do the reassembly when we do it in a video. Might help somebody, just some of the steps I've learned and that I do. Might help someone, may not, you never know, but we're going to pull the recoil off. Yet a long bolt's going to go through that. On most saws are that way. The bolt that goes through the chain brake handle is going to be longer. And then you'll have 3 normal sized. Some of the older saws, I think like a 038 in mind. I may be wrong. Only have like 3 bolts around the recoil. There's some others. Kind of weird, that one ain't wanting to come out, but I'm sure it's just bound up somewhere. Got one here. Yeah, like I said, guys, in video lights, you've about got to shadow things out to see what you're doing. And you got one here. What is up with that? Bound up was an understatement. I guess that chain brake flag still had it kind of bound up a little bit. Some people. Alright guys, now all we have is the cylinder. We can take it loose and then the intake boot loose, and if you can find one of those bits, I found that one online. It was actually made by Stihl. I've not located another one. If I do, I'll buy 2 or 3 of them, but I've had that one for a long time. It is awesome. Let's see. I'm pretty sure this saw has a gasket on it. It does, and I just decked the bottom of the cylinder. Here's one of those that has that ring of death below the squish band that we all love. Can't do nothing with. I hope I'm not forgetting anything. Somebody get a good laugh if I am. She should be loose and ready to come up. There we go. That gasket had a little bit of stick to it, but I'll probably go back with the gasket to lead, honestly, guys. A lot easier if you take that stupid handle off of the way. And we're probably going to, when I go to get into actual work of the saw, but you know what, we got it up off of there with it on, so I'm sure I can swindle around and get the new cylinder back on. These also have a fairly long, it's an M6, goes into the cylinder base on these as well. And I've shown it in other videos, but I like to separate my cylinder bolts. It's just me in their own little tray. May help you out. Again, I've said it in other videos. I just do this stuff to try to help people. I ain't doing it to try to draw business in here. I work on stuff regardless, so whether I video it or not is up to me. But cylinder base, definitely I decked it. Again, looks like maybe the ring of death up there. ugly aftermarket squish band. We'll pull the intake boot off and have a look at this thing. First off, exhaust port looks like clean up polish. Those things are freaking humongous on these anyway. It was raised none, might have been widened. There we go, get a look at it. Maybe if I tilt the light down. Is it on 100%? Let's see. Light says it's on 100% now. Maybe we can get a look in there. Upper transfers was raised, and don't look like I done a damn thing to the intake port at all on it. If I can get it spun around there. Really hot numbers in that. I don't really remember where they were at, but I would say the exhaust is probably in the mid-90s. Which a lot of these things on the OE saws, when you get them, port timing really similar. And there's that piston. A lot of that coating wears off of those. As you can see, I run a good mix of oil in my saws. I run 32-to-1 and everything. I even have like a few gallons out there mixed up right now that has this stuff in it that everyone hates for some reason. I don't know. I've got saws in here I know that have ran on it for 20 years at 50-to-1 and they're still fine, still run good, but to each their own. I buy whatever's on sale usually, but when I bought the 661 I had to buy a case of that to get the extended warranty, which I probably never use, but who cares. I really like the Duke's pistons and the cylinders. I don't know where he has them made, but they usually last. Quality's usually good. It's usually there, but the last thing we got to do here, I guess, is pull the piston off. And what looks like I did put, it either came with OEM style circlips or I put some in it, so I need to get a pick. I guess that was one last thing we needed in this teardown, was a pick or a little screwdriver or whatever to get the circlips out, and hopefully it don't fly down into the case of the freaking saw. Yeah, it's gonna come out easy. I put a set of OEM new circlips in one the other night. Where did that thing go? And like never got them to go in, guys. They were so stiff. It was a nightmare. But yeah, there we go. And hopefully I can get through here to push that wrist pin out. It's in there good. Don't use your hands as hammers. But that one's not real stiff. I'm just barely picking on it. I could push it, but she's about out. Like I said, this saw has a lot of time on it, a lot of time in the mill. I mean, look at that clutch. Ain't no one gonna argue that. Again, Duke's moly coated piston. I'd put it in on the original. I ran the Farmertec piston in it for a little bit. Then we went to this. Seemed like there was an improvement. I don't really remember. It was before I had a lathe on that original cylinder. I was still block sanding bases. Nothing wrong with that. If that's all you've got, have at it and do it. You can even do the cylinders that have a skirt on them. I've took a hole saw and punched a hole through like a piece of treated lumber, glue sandpaper to it. And it's tedious, it's time consuming, but you don't have to have a lathe to do this. I've cut a mini squish band with a piece of sandpaper stuck on a piston. A lot of the stuff early on I didn't show because I didn't know how people would react to it. People still would cringe at a lot of it, but that one has one of the nice metal shimmed gaskets you can reuse and reuse and reuse again, although there'd be people cringe at that too. And their wrist pin bearing. Looks like it's still getting adequate oil. Still feels good. That piston was rocking nice and smooth and felt good and tight. So I know a lot of people had a lot of bad luck out of the original Farmertec wrist pins, but I think a lot of it is what ratio of oil you run and how hard you run the saw, how well it's tuned. A lot of variables go into this stuff. People probably get tired of hearing it, but hey, it is what it is. My wife ordered me that. And with that said, guys, I really truly hope this helped somebody. Thanks for all your support. Thanks for watching the videos. If you haven't, if you don't care, give us a thumbs up. Especially if this helped you, it helps push the videos out to where somebody else can see it, that it may help. But anyway, guys, y'all have a good one.